Go. There we go. So you just probably saw the time lapses of putting these together. We're in. As with all these things, if you've ever put kitchen units together, particularly I guess in a house where nothing's straight and the floorboard's very uneven, as with all these things, getting the units to sit level and making sure that all the feet are touching the floor in the right way is probably takes as long to do that as it does to make the jolly things. So you'll have seen that last time lapse that Ethan, our eldest, was helping make them, which was really nice for him to get involved and learning how to make kitchen units. But then, yeah, he really came in on making it a bit quicker to level these things, and it's made complicated by the fact that, just show you, just why not? In case you wonder what I was doing for a lot of that time lapse, you might not be able to see, but there are 7 legs on these corner units, and so making the different planes in terms of forward and back and left and right level. You do one unit, and then you got to match it to the next unit, which then you realise is a bit too high or a bit too low, so then you have to adjust it. But just say, if you've ever done this, the way that I found quickest to do it is to, let's take this other unit for example. So this one's on 5 legs. So literally you just raise up the middle leg, and then you level it based on the 4. On these ones again, I just make it so that it's on 4 legs rather than the 7, so that yeah, we can focus on leveling 4 and then make the others touch the ground afterwards, which just seems to make it a bit quicker. So we leveled it and we got more close, and then invariably you screw them together like you meant to, and then there's still a bit more adjustment because things shift a little bit. So, but we're there now. So that happened, and now my focus has turned to these worktops. So I was in Manchester again yesterday working, so kind of got home, I don't know, what was it, about 7:30, 7:45 sort of time. Had some tea, and then really wanted to get a first coat of oil on these worktops. So we've gone for, as I think I mentioned before, I'll show you a before and after of these because they're really, really different. Going from the natural oak to stained. I'll show you before and after now. But yeah, so what we've done again, because we did it in our last house, is gone for 40mm oak. So nice thick stuff, but this stuff is from a company that do what they call full stave worktop. So you might have seen that for the, I guess, like B&Q and IKEA and stuff, their oak worktop is using staves that join together on the ends. So you might get a stave that's kind of that long, and then you'll get a stave that's really long. And what it ends up is, you end up with almost like a grid kind of look, which is fine. But we came across this company, I forget what it's called, I'll maybe put it in the description for you, that do full stave worktops. So you'll see the full length of this. So this here, where's the line? The line is there. So that is like a, what would that be, like 11 centimeters, 12 centimeters, and that stave, the stave is something that goes lengthways with the grain, is the full length of the worktop, so you don't end up with a butt joint. And then we've got another stave here, we've got another stave here that's a bit wider, and they kind of do this thing where they kind of like stagger the sizes. I really like it because, again, you don't get a butt joint in the middle of your worktop, but also the way that they stagger it just makes it look a bit nicer. So just personal preference. It is a bit more money, but I really like it. So that's what we've decided to do again. So this is called a rustic oak. So their rustic oak means that they supply it with the knots and kind of stuff. They kind of purposefully give you a few more, like wood with that's a bit more knotty. Some like that, some don't. I quite like it. That's what I'm for. So yeah, I got home last night, added some quick tea, and then managed to get a coat of Danish oil on this. And then this morning, I'll show you the other one actually. Here's a dog. Hey, say hi. You gonna say hi? No, Tilly's just thinking, oh, you've got your phone out, there's gonna be a torch. This is our other one for our sink unit that's a bit wider. So this is 720, normal worktop is 620, but this is 720 because of the depth of our Belfast sink. Yeah, so this is the other one. Looks really nice. Again, you can see that the staves on this one are different again, because we've got some, that's maybe like 700 staves, and then we got maybe a 900 stave, and this is maybe like a 12, and then this one here is really wide. So yeah, just makes it look a bit more random as well. So just in case you're interested, how I prep these, they come as like a 150 grit sanded. So it's quite smooth anyway. I then choose to sand these to 180 grit just because it's a bit finer. Being careful not to, because this is square edge, being careful not to round off any of these edges, because obviously we're going to, in the corners particularly, butt up square edges to square edges, so you've got to be careful of that. But I sand it to 180, just that little bit finer. And then I brush on Danish oil and order it by the 5 gallon. So just bog standard Danish oil, works really well. And then yeah, paint it on, leave it for 8 to 7 minutes just to soak in a bit, and then rub off the excess and leave to dry for a few hours before I flip it and do the next one. But then what happens is, because it's a natural product, the wood grain, you'll feel, if you can hear that, that's not because the wood is rough in one sense. That's because the grain has responded to moisture, which is obviously in the oil, and it lifts some of the grain lifts naturally because of the moisture that it's kind of open, almost like, I guess, opening up your pores, for want of a better phrase. So that's what it's done. It's responded to the moisture, and it kind of opens up its pores and lets that moisture in, which is a good thing because it lets the oil into the wood a bit deeper. But it's a bad thing because then your worktop doesn't feel smooth again. So then you have to sand, which seems a bit odd because you've put oil on it, but you need to sand again. So I would probably do this now at 240, that's really fine. Just sand the whole thing. Or if you don't want to, because obviously there's now oil on this surface, so you do tend to go through a few pads because they get clogged up, particularly at 240. Or you can wire wool it. So if you into doing this and you want to give it a shot, yeah, you can, with the grain, again, God, be careful of this because you can really mess up what would this be? This is like a 400-pound piece of wood, I think. So you've got to be careful and know what you're doing. But then you can wire wool it with the grain. I'm going to sand with the grain, always with the grain. Don't go across the grain, because that will add scratches where you don't want scratches and be really hard to get out. So yeah, with the grain, because we're trying to get rid of some of that grain that's lifted. So going with the grain, and yeah, then we'll put another coat on and see how it feels. And this is just you just got to go with the particular bit of wood that you're working with. Some are okay with 2 coats, and the grain doesn't lift after the second one, but sometimes it does, and you have to sand a second time and then recoat a third time. I've not yet had a piece of this worktop, or any piece of worktop, because I've done it with beech worktop in our coffee shop as well, that where the grain lifts again after the third time. But hey, this was the first time, I guess. So it is just what you got to do. Firstly, to make sure your worktop gets a good amount of water resistance, but also just to get the look. So there you go. Anyway, I'm going to stop rabbiting, because you might not be interested in how I prep the worktop. But if you've ever considered having real worktop yourself, then you need to consider these things. Worth saying now, I guess, while I'm talking about it, the downside of having real oak worktop, and if you've got oak worktop or real wood worktop, but I think it's particularly oak, is that anything metal you put on it, even after you've gone ham on the Danish oil, it'll leave a black mark. Something to do with the oxidization between the steel and the wood. So in our last house, we made the mistake of our first time ever using a pristine kitchen finished, leaving a steel tray on top of the worktop that had just been dried, with a tea towel, but not appreciating that there was still, I guess, a very fine layer of moisture left on the wood, and we ended up with a nice rectangle as we left it there overnight that had blackened the oak because of this moisture that had done some sort of reaction. So that wasn't a great thing to wake up to the following morning. So yeah, that's the only downside with real wood worktops. You just have to be a bit more careful about what you leave on it, and make sure you use like chopping boards and those sorts of things. So anyway, there we go. Rabbit. I'm going to just let these dogs out, because it looks like she might want to go out. Do you want to go out? You want to go outside? You want to go outside? We'll let them out, and then I need to flip these worktops and get on coating, because the other piece of worktop that we need is coming today. Woohoo! So we might get worktops finished, in terms of one end anyway, cut and fitted today. And then the rest of the next few days will be to do this portion of the kitchen, which will be fun, because, as I said before in the previous video, got plumbing and wiring to do both together in this end. So yeah, we'll bring you along for the ride. See you in a bit. So a pause in the kitchen renovation. Part of having a old house that's on the side of a hill and having lots of rain. Discovered that I've had a flood. Yeah, I had quite a lot of water in my workshop, and so I've had to divert a load of attention to sorting this out. Fortunately, I knew that from the previous owners that this wall, the gully the other side, wasn't great. So I don't think I filmed it, but last summer I dug out the gully. Must have been, I don't know, like 6 inches, 8 inches, 9 inches, something like that, to take all of the old rubbish and stuff out to give us a bit of drainage. And that kind of kept on top of it. We still had a little bit of seepage, but it was fine. But just discovered that water has been running in all the way down to that side there, and I've just had to scoop out loads of water. Again, fortunately, I know there potentially was an issue, so like new timber I've kept off the floor, and very fortunately this plasterboard, which is for some of our ceilings in the bedrooms, I also had the forethought to put on bits of wood just in case. And as you can see, came jolly close, because this piece of wood has wicked up the water just by being sat on the floor. Unfortunately, it looks like the plasterboard didn't, because it was just off the floor enough. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's been fun, making sure we don't get electrocuted by water pouring into our building. So this is the kind of issue. This is, as you know, if you've watched previous videos, this part of the building is from the 1700s, 1750s or 60s or something. So this back section was the original farmhouse, and not completely sure whether it's always been like this, possibly, but we know that there's an ingle nook fireplace down the bottom with like a bread oven and stuff in it still, and the original sink is in there. I'll show you sometime if I haven't already, can't remember. Then this door has always been here, which kind of says that maybe, we know it was a one up, one down. We found it in some history books that it was actually one of the first kind of barn buildings or farmhouses to adopt the English A-frame. So don't actually know why it's not listed, but unfortunately, because it hasn't been listed in the past at all, there's now not a lot left of the A-frame. It's not even worth doing, so that's a bit of a shame. But anyway, this has always been a door, which is like the loft area, we call it, because we don't have a loft in the main house, as you've seen, because we only have a crawl space. So we're using this as our loft area, but it would have been like all open and I guess sleeping room. We know at one point there were, I think it was 8 people living in this house, so managed to find that much out. But yeah, so it's on the side of a hill, and as you can see, we've made a mess because I had to dig it out. So I'll take you around to show you. But as you can see from this bank here, it's been like that a jolly long time. So it must have always been an issue. I guess back in the day, they didn't worry too much, or at least they probably kept the drainage right. So what we've had to do, as you can see, the mess we made, and it's so annoying. I was out here the other day, walking around with the dogs and stuff, and again I cleared this out, I'd V'd it out to a spade width, and I looked at it. We got the drain pipe bit. I mean, it's just a massive steel pipe that goes from there to the corner of that other building over there. And yeah, I looked at it and was like, just out the corner of my eye, that just seems a little bit higher than normal, the water height. And of course, with rain and just what happens is we get a rain for a day or two, we're fine, and like a lot of the gullies are dry, and then all of the water, I guess, gradually drains under the soil or in the soil, and then we start to get it appearing out in the gullies, and that's what's happened. So whilst it isn't raining, hasn't rained in the last few days, it's just gradually sort of got to a point, and then it's found this gully blocks and raised the water level enough to get in my workshop. So everything stopped to make this happen. So we've dug it out. Ethan's massively helped as well. I dug it out just as like an emergency, and then Ethan's carried on and made it wider so that hopefully it doesn't block up again with I mean, it won't block up again. The reason we discovered it had blocked up was because of lots of leaves from all these lovely trees, but just create havoc with when you're trying to drain stuff. So yeah, we've managed to get that draining, and hopefully that will dry out the workshop. But it's the fun of being in an old place, and you have to kind of react to stuff like that. So yeah, pause on the kitchen and divert attention to keeping the workshop dry. So just thought I'd show you the fun of having an old place like this. So there we go. Right now I can go back to the kitchen and see where we get on with these worktops. Right, catch you later. Bye. So as you can see behind me, we did get the worktop, but we didn't get it fitted. It didn't come till later in the day. So we spent, obviously, with bits of worktop that are 400 quid each. You want to spend a bit of time making sure you measure twice and cut once and all that kind of malarkey, which was a good job because there was an instance where I hadn't measured it quite right, and the second measurement proved that, and so I hadn't cut it. But yeah, so these are cut now. Just putting the second coat on the underneath before flipping them, and putting the second coat on the tops. Come out well. Had to cut this one in a few interesting ways. You might not be able to see it, but it's thicker at this end than it is at that end. I had to do a fancy cut on the back. So reason for all that is because, as we've already said, we've got this one long length of worktop, and then we're joining it on the ends, and because it isn't quite as, I mean, this corner's a square, but there's still an element of not straightness. In the wall, there's like a, as you can see, there's that one's quite close in the corner. And then we have a 400 mil rather, difference here. So we have to take that into account with the worktop. And then on this end, because of these units being a fixed sizes, obviously, we ended up with a bit more of a gap at this end, which is just kind of what happens. To kind of work that out. So fortunately, had a piece of worktop that I'd saved from our last house, and I've managed to keep it relatively straight, i.e. not bowed, and it was deeper than the 620 worktop just by a little bit. I think it was like 65. So we've managed to rejig this so that that deeper piece goes this end, and we've lost a lot of any gap that we might have had. So that's cool. It's gonna work out well. So this will now push up to there. We'll put a small piece here, and then we'll put that funky shaped piece on this end. And that will be good. Now, I haven't yet decided how I'm going to join these together. I seem to recall last time that I did some funky routing underneath, and used like the proper worktop bolts that you kind of route a pocket underneath in two portions, and then you pull it together and it just holds the joint tight. We're dealing with all like straight joints here, so not completely sure whether I'll do that. Going to decide once we come to fit them, but we're a little ways off. So now today, Denise's posing. We're going to tackle. Sorry?
You should say about my floor.
I have already said about your floor.
Have you?
Yeah. So Janitha has already been doing more slabs of the floor. She's getting there. She's doing a little bit, like even this morning. She's made us a cup of coffee, and I heard she's scraping. It does take quite a while. It has took quite a while. And then I've gone and, did you notice? It's got a little bit of drops of Danish oil on it, so she's got to take that off now as well.
No, because I want it finished like that anyway.
So anyway, so yeah, this today and probably tomorrow, it's about getting this end done, which is probably the final big chapter of this kitchen. So yes, we're going to need to obviously rip out the units and then figure out this unit being here and what that's going to look like, and incorporating the units that we've bought, and then yeah, figuring out this piping and the wiring because we have both set here, and as you can see, it's been here for a jolly long time. Can't think how long this piece of wood is. I mean, it's even been plastered in, but it's obviously been there to hold these pipes for a little while. But it's got wires in, and it's got, yeah, wires that go out to our utility up there. So I want to get rid of those wires. I want to get rid of those pipes that go out to the washing machine. And because we're putting a corner wall unit up here, I need to sort out what we do with these pipes. Original plan was to push them into the corner, but then we know that up in the toilet, which is the bathroom above here, our soil pipe is in that corner, so probably won't be able to get to them. So might have to do something funky in terms of boxing and bringing them as high up to the ceiling as I can, and then over, and then I want to drop them down behind the wall unit so that they're hidden as much as possible. Bring them down in this corner. So we'll bring you along for the ride. Kind of not really looking forward to it, because although we've kind of, by some of your standards maybe, living in a mess, and I'm sure there are quite a few of you that maybe wouldn't live with a camping stove for 7 or 8 months. As mentioned before in a video, in our house before that, we actually lived with the camping stove temporarily, which ended up being like 18 months. So it's just what you got to do, innit? Like, but this one probably feels like a biggie, because I don't know all the plumbing in this house, and there aren't stop cocks or, you know, the stop taps where they should be. And the walls are so thick, so to hide the pipe I need to drill a hole through this wall. Where's the tape measure?
I don't know.
There. Can you reach? I've got to drill a hole through this wall to hide these pipes. And the wire. And it's 54 centimetres deep. So I do have a long drill bit, but yeah, it's just the potential of getting to tonight and still not having a sink is quite high. So we're going to fill up bottles of water and stuff, and because while we're doing it, may as well do it properly, and yet you want that creature comfort of just being able to have a sink and running water in your kitchen. So I'm going to stop wrapping it now. We'll just probably time lapse a lot of it and then pause it as we go in kind of the style that we have been. But first scenario is to move this out of the way so we don't get it damaged, and then figure out how to turn off the water, and then remove the sink unit, and then we're committed. So yeah, take along for the ride. Woohoo! See you in a bit.